He promised me the world, but instead, he left me in a suitcase, like I was nothing. I never saw it coming, but he had planned my death all along. My name is Valentina Tres Palacios. I grew up in Bogota. Before I died, I was a rising star in the DJ scene. Music was everything to me. I worked really hard, taking on part-time jobs and studying by day, playing in clubs by night, all while helping my mom raise my siblings after my parents split. By the age of 22, I had made it. The clubs were my stage, and the city was mine, but then I met John Poulos. At first, he was everything I thought I wanted, confident, generous, and full of promises. But John Poulos wasn't just a man with money, he carried secrets. He walked away from a wife and 3 kids just to start over with someone younger, me. I didn't know about his past. I didn't know about the abuse his wife had to endure. I didn't know he idolized men like Andrew Tate, or that he believed women should be controlled, not loved. And worst of all, I didn't know he was capable of murder. Our relationship moved quickly, but I never saw his jealousy coming. He watched me, constantly asking where I was, who I was with, and what I was doing. I was a young woman in the public eye, surrounded by people, mostly men, who admired me for my talent. I thought it was normal, and that he was just an older man who cared deeply. But his concern turned into an obsession. It became suffocating. Every time I performed, he would demand constant updates, videos, photos, proof that I wasn't with someone else. He didn't trust me. I could feel his eyes on me even when he wasn't around. The worst part was that he was always convincing. He'd twist everything I did into something suspicious, always accusing me of something I wasn't doing. If I spoke to another man, he would say I was flirting. If I laughed too long at a joke, he would accuse me of hiding something. As the months went by, his behavior escalated. I couldn't live like this anymore. I tried to end things with him, but John was relentless. He hired a private investigator to follow me. He showed me the so-called evidence, pictures of me talking to other men, and used it to accuse me of cheating. I didn't know if the investigator had actually seen me with anyone else, or if it was just his jealousy clouding his judgment. But what mattered was that he didn't trust me, and that was enough to push me to the edge. I told him it was over, but John couldn't accept it. His rage was consuming him, and I had no idea just how far he would go to keep control. I didn't know it then, but John's online presence revealed the kind of man he really was. On his Twitter, he had openly shared his admiration for Andrew Tate. One tweet stuck out. "Most of you men aren't even living life. You're barely existing. Then you die following the footsteps of your parents and everyone around you. I've shown you the alternative path." Sure, this was a red flag, but John was from another time. I never could have imagined that those beliefs would eventually lead to my death. John's obsession with control only deepened. In his mind, I was his possession, and the idea of another man taking his place made him furious. He demanded to know where I was every second of the day, and when I ignored him, he would explode. He became irrational, and the accusations just became more frequent. I tried to break things off, but each time I did, he would beg, promise he'd change, and manipulate me into staying. At this point, I knew I couldn't live like this anymore. It wasn't love anymore. It was manipulation, fear, and jealousy. In the first weeks of January 2023, everything came to a head. He convinced me to give him another chance, this time moving to Colombia to be with me. He promised me he'd let go of his insecurities and become the man I needed him to be. I was hesitant, but agreed. I believed him, and so did my family. John was giving up his life in America to be with me forever. Surely he was serious about changing. But in reality, John was planning something else, a plan far darker than I could have imagined. On January 22nd, 2023, I was moving into our new apartment, excited about this fresh start. I video called my family, showing them the new place. It was a new chapter in my life, one I was looking forward to. But that night, everything changed. John and I went out for drinks. Everything seemed fine at first. We laughed, danced, and talked, but something shifted inside him. I could feel the tension growing in his every movement. As we left the bar, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was walking into a trap. It was as if the world had slowed down, and I just knew I wasn't going to make it out alive. The next few hours were a blur, but one thing was certain. John had been planning this all along. The next day, everything I feared but couldn't name became real. John didn't just lose control, he ended my life. John physically attacked me, causing serious harm to my body. The violence was so extreme that it left visible marks, including on the inside of my mouth. I lost consciousness, and even then, he wouldn't stop. He kept going until my heart stopped beating. He thought he could get away with it. He put my body in a suitcase, wrapped me in a garbage bag, and abandoned me in a dumpster. He covered me up so he wouldn't have to face the reality that he'd taken my life. He thought he could just erase me from the world, and that finally I would belong to him and him alone. But he didn't count on the cameras or the unlucky man who found my body abandoned in a container in Fontibon. It was a homeless man simply searching for something of worth. Instead, he found me and immediately called the authorities. John's attempt to flee the country after my death only sealed his fate. After committing the murder, he flew to Panama, then tried to board a flight to Turkey. But the authorities were right behind him. They arrested him just before he could escape. John thought he could evade justice, but he was wrong. His plan to run away from his crime, one he had planned so carefully, fell apart. But just when it seemed like the case was nearing its end, John dropped a bombshell. He claimed he had been targeted by the Medellin cartel. His defense was as absurd as it was dangerous. Another twist in a tale already filled with them. Was he trying to deflect attention from his crime, or was there more to the story than anyone could imagine? The police found overwhelming evidence linking John to my murder. The surveillance footage of him with the suitcase containing my body was enough to put him away for life. Yet he continued trying to mislead everyone. He told anyone who would listen that the cartel had targeted him after my death, and he was simply trying to escape to save his own life. According to him, the cartel was hunting him down, and he feared for his safety. He said that's why he fled to Panama, but this story was nothing more than a smokescreen to justify his escape. In the end, he couldn't give authorities a concrete reason as to why he was targeted in the first place. There was no way out for him now. Justice was coming. The trial began, and John tried to deny everything. His defense team made ridiculous claims, arguing that he didn't understand the charges or the legal system. They even tried to argue that the murder wasn't premeditated, but the evidence told a different story. It was clear that John had carefully orchestrated my murder out of jealousy and control. John was sentenced to 42 years and 8 months for aggravated femicide, concealment of evidence, and obstruction of justice. John Poulos will spend the rest of his life behind bars, but his actions will never change what he took from me. My dreams, my ambitions, and my life were all stolen from me by a man consumed by jealousy, misogyny, and insecurity. But I was more than just a body in a suitcase. I was a woman with dreams who was on the verge of greatness. And no man, not even John, can take that away.